Chief Emeka Adebayo stepped out of his black Range Rover into the controlled chaos of the high-rise construction site, his Italian leather shoes carefully navigating the uneven ground as he surveyed the towering skeleton of steel and concrete that would soon become his company's flagship commercial complex. The morning sun cast long shadows across the bustling site, where dozens of workers in hard hats and high-visibility vests moved with practiced efficiency among the heavy machinery and stacks of building materials that stretched toward the cloudless sky. As the founder and CEO of Adebayo Holdings, one of the largest development companies in West Africa, Amaka had built his fortune on attention to detail, rigorous safety standards, and an uncompromising commitment to delivering projects on time and within budget. His monthly site inspections were legendary among his project managers, who knew that every safety protocol, every quality checkpoint, and every timeline milestone would be scrutinized with the intensity of a military inspection. Before continuing with the story, please subscribe to help our channel reach 1,000 subscribers. This is really important to us. Thank you in advance. Let's continue. Today's visit was particularly important. The 30-story mixed-use tower represented a 2 billion naira investment and had attracted significant media attention as a symbol of the region's economic growth and architectural ambition. Any delays or safety incidents could damage not only his company's reputation, but also his personal standing in the business community, where trust and reliability were the foundation of every major deal. His security chief followed at a respectful distance, while Emeka made his way toward the site office, reviewing the latest progress reports on his tablet, and noting areas where the work seemed to be moving faster than scheduled. The project was actually ahead of timeline, which should have been cause for celebration, but Emeka's experience had taught him that accelerated schedules sometimes meant corners were being cut in ways that could prove dangerous later. The rhythmic pounding of hammers, the whir of power tools, and the rumble of concrete mixers created a symphony of industrial progress that usually energized him. But as he approached the central work area, where the building's core was being constructed, a sharp electronic alarm began blaring from the crane control station, its urgent tone cutting through the ambient noise, like a warning of imminent disaster. Ifunanya looked up instinctively toward the massive tower crane that dominated the construction site, its long arm extending over the work area, where several teams were pouring concrete for the building's foundation supports. The alarm seemed to be indicating some kind of equipment malfunction or safety breach, but the specific nature of the problem wasn't immediately clear from his position on the ground. The crane operator was visible in his control cabin high above, frantically working his controls and speaking rapidly into his radio headset. Workers below had stopped their activities and were looking up with obvious concern, their body language suggesting that whatever was happening was serious enough to warrant immediate attention. As he moved closer to investigate, stepping around a stack of steel reinforcement bars and navigating between two concrete mixers, Ifunanya felt the ground beneath his feet shift slightly. What he didn't realize was that he had wandered into a restricted zone where the ground had been excavated and temporarily covered with metal plates that weren't designed to support the weight of someone walking directly over them. The excavation beneath the plates was part of the building's utility infrastructure, with electrical conduits, water lines, and communication cables being installed in trenches that extended several feet below ground level. The metal plates were meant to provide temporary protection for the equipment while allowing limited foot traffic, but they hadn't been properly secured and weren't rated for the concentrated weight load of someone Emeka's size. The metal plate under his right foot tilted suddenly, throwing him off balance and sending him stumbling toward a pile of construction materials that included sharp-edged steel beams, concrete blocks, and power tools that could have caused serious injury. His expensive tablet went flying from his hands as he reached out desperately to break his fall, his mind racing through the potential consequences of what was about to happen. But before he could hit the ground or collide with the equipment, strong hands grabbed his shoulders and steadied him, pulling him back from the dangerous area with quick, practiced movements that spoke of someone accustomed to emergency situations and split-second decision-making. "Watch your step, sir," a calm female voice said firmly. "That area isn't stable for foot traffic. You need to stay behind the yellow safety line." Ifunanya Firi Seker began this. Serious brown eyes of a woman in her late 20s, wearing a hard hat, safety goggles, and a high-visibility vest over work clothes that were clearly well used, but meticulously maintained. Her grip on his shoulders was steady and confident, and she didn't release him until she was certain he had regained his balance and was standing on solid ground. "Are you injured?" she asked, quickly scanning him for signs of harm, while keeping one hand ready to provide additional support if needed. "Any pain in your back, legs, or ankles from the sudden movement?" "I'm fine," Ifunanya said. "Thank you for the assistance. I didn't realize that area was unstable." The woman nodded and immediately began checking the metal plates that had shifted under his weight, testing their stability, and making detailed notes on a small clipboard that she pulled from her vest pocket. Her movements were systematic and thorough, suggesting someone who took safety documentation seriously and understood the importance of proper incident recording. "These plates are temporary covers for excavated utility trenches," she explained while working. "They're marked with warning signs, but the visibility isn't great from this angle, especially with the morning sun creating shadows. I should have positioned additional barriers or posted someone to monitor this area when I saw you approaching." As she worked, Ifunanya noticed several things that impressed him, despite his shaken state. Her movements were methodical and professional, suggesting formal training in safety protocols, rather than just on-the-job experience. Her hard hat displayed multiple safety certification stickers from recognized training organizations, and the first aid kit attached to her belt looked recently restocked and well-organized, with medical supplies visible through the clear plastic compartments. Most importantly, she seemed more concerned about preventing future incidents than seeking recognition for her quick response to this one. Her focus was entirely on systematic improvement rather than personal credit, which suggested someone who understood that safety was an ongoing process rather than just a series of individual interventions. "I'm Amaka," she said, extending a work-gloved hand after completing her safety check and securing the loose plates with additional supports. "I'm one of the site safety coordinators. I should have been monitoring this area more carefully when I saw you approaching." "Chief Emeka Adebayo," he replied, accepting her handshake and noting the firm, confident grip that spoke of someone accustomed to physical work and comfortable with professional interactions across different levels of the organizational hierarchy. "And the fault was entirely mine for not paying attention to the safety barriers and warning signs." Amaka's eyes widened slightly as she registered his name and realized she was speaking to the owner of the entire project. But rather than becoming deferential or nervous, she maintained her professional composure and continued with her safety assessment, checking her watch and making additional notes about the time and circumstances of the incident. "Adebayo, I need to file an incident report about this near miss, and I'd recommend having our site engineer review the placement and visibility of warning signs in this area. Even if no one was injured, we should analyze what happened to prevent similar situations." Ifunanya self, impressed by her immediate focus on systematic improvement, rather than just damage control. In his experience, most people in her position would have been primarily concerned about avoiding blame or responsibility, but Amaka seemed genuinely committed to using this incident as a learning opportunity. However, as they spoke, Ifunanya became aware that their conversation was being observed by several other workers, including a heavy-set man in a supervisor's vest, who was approaching them with obvious concern and what looked like barely controlled irritation. "Amaka, what happened here?" the supervisor demanded as he reached them, his voice carrying the sharp edge of someone who viewed any safety incident as a potential threat to project timelines and budget targets. "Why was Mr. Adebayo in a restricted area? Who was supposed to be monitoring this zone?" The warning signs weren't clearly visible from his approach angle. "Foreman AGU," Amaka replied calmly, pulling out her clipboard to show him the documentation she had been completing. "I'm recommending we review the placement and add additional markers, plus assign dedicated spotters for this area during peak activity hours." Foreman Agiu's expression darkened as he glanced between Amaka and Emeka, clearly calculating the potential consequences of this incident for his own position and reputation. His eyes lingered on the scattered safety equipment and the metal plates that had shifted, and Emeka could see him mentally preparing damage control strategies that would likely involve deflecting responsibility onto subordinates. "Mr. Adebayo, I sincerely apologize for this safety oversight," Agiu said, his voice taking on the obsequious tone that many supervisors adopted when dealing with senior management. I can assure you that we'll investigate how this happened and take appropriate disciplinary action to ensure it never occurs again." The way he emphasized appropriate disciplinary action while looking directly at Amaka made his intended scapegoat obvious, and Emeka felt his protective instincts sharpen. This woman had prevented a potentially serious accident through quick thinking and professional competence, and now she was being positioned to take blame for a systemic safety issue that was clearly beyond her individual control. "I'd like a complete investigation of this incident," Emeka said carefully, his voice carrying the authority that made project managers and contractors pay close attention to every word, including a comprehensive review of all safety protocols, warning sign placement, staff training procedures, and supervisory oversight responsibilities. "Of course, sir," Foreman AGU replied quickly, his relief at Emeka's professional tone clearly visible. "We'll have a full report to you by tomorrow morning, including our action plan for preventing similar incidents." But as Emeka watched the interaction between the foreman and Emeka, he noticed subtle signs that suggested this incident was being framed in ways that might not reflect the full truth. Ifunanya's eagerness to assign blame rather than analyze systemic issues raised red flags about the site's overall safety culture and management practices. "I'll want to speak with all relevant personnel individually," Emeka added, making direct eye contact with both EGU and Emeka, including Miss Emeka, since she was the first responder and seems to have the most detailed knowledge of what actually occurred and what preventive measures might be most effective. "Sir, that's really not necessary," Foreman EGU said, his discomfort becoming more obvious as he realized that Emeka intended to gather information through multiple channels rather than relying solely on his version of events. "I can provide you with all the information you need through proper supervisory channels and our standard incident reporting procedures. I prefer to gather information through multiple channels when safety issues are involved," Emeka replied firmly. "Safety is my highest priority, and I want to understand exactly how our protocols performed in this situation and what improvements might be needed." As the foreman walked away to presumably begin his investigation, Emeka found himself alone with Amaka again, studying her professional demeanor and wondering what her perspective on site management might reveal about larger issues he should be concerned about. "How long have you been working on this project?" he asked. "6 months, sir. I started as a general laborer and was promoted to safety coordinator after completing additional certifications in emergency response and construction safety management. And your assessment of overall safety culture on this site?" Amaka hesitated for a moment, clearly weighing her words carefully. "Most of the workers are committed to following safety protocols, sir, but there's always pressure to maintain schedule, and sometimes that creates tension between safety requirements and productivity targets." It was a diplomatically phrased answer that nevertheless suggested underlying issues worth investigating. Ifunanya Meko made a mental note to conduct his own independent review of safety practices, and perhaps bring in external consultants to assess whether schedule pressures were compromising worker protection. "I appreciate your honesty," he said, "and I want you to know that your quick response today prevented what could have been a serious accident. That kind of situational awareness and professional competence is exactly what we need more of on this site." "Thank you, sir. I just did what anyone with proper training would do in that situation." But as Emeka walked back toward his vehicle to continue his site inspection, he found himself thinking that not everyone would have responded with such professional competence and genuine concern for his well-being. Amaka's combination of technical knowledge, quick reflexes, and ethical commitment to safety over politics was exactly the kind of leadership quality that his company needed to foster and reward. However, he was also concerned about the political dynamics he had observed between her and Foreman AGU. If she was being scapegoated for systemic safety issues, that suggested deeper problems with site management that could affect both worker safety and project quality. That afternoon, Amaka returned to his corporate headquarters and immediately convened a meeting with his head of construction operations, site safety director, and legal counsel to discuss the morning's incident and request a comprehensive safety audit of the high-rise project. The meeting lasted over 2 hours as they reviewed current safety protocols, insurance implications, and potential liability issues that could arise from inadequate site management. But even as he focused on the business implications and regulatory compliance requirements, Emeka found his thoughts returning to Amaka's calm professionalism, and wondering what her story was beyond her role as a safety coordinator. Her combination of technical competence, quick reflexes, and ethical commitment to safety over politics was exactly the kind of leadership quality that his company needed to foster and reward. More concerning was his growing suspicion that talented employees like Amaka were being systematically undermined by supervisors who prioritized short-term productivity over long-term safety and quality. If that was the case, it suggested fundamental problems with his company's management culture that could affect both worker welfare and business outcomes. The next morning, Emeka arrived at the construction site earlier than usual, ostensibly to review the incident report that foreman Agu had promised to deliver. But he was also curious to observe the site's normal operations and see how safety protocols were actually implemented when senior management wasn't conducting formal inspections. What he found was illuminating and deeply troubling. Several workers were operating without proper safety equipment, including hard hats that didn't meet current standards and safety harnesses that showed signs of wear beyond acceptable limits. Warning signs were poorly maintained in areas where he wasn't likely to visit, with faded text and missing or damaged reflective materials that would make them nearly invisible in poor lighting conditions. If you've watched this far, you must have liked the video. Please write in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you haven't liked it yet, leave a like. Now let's continue to learn the surprising ending of this tragic story. Most concerning was the atmosphere he observed around safety enforcement. Workers seemed to view safety requirements as obstacles to productivity rather than essential protections, and supervisors appeared to encourage corner cutting whenever they thought it wouldn't be noticed by senior management. He watched Amaka attempting to enforce safety protocols while being systematically undermined by supervisors who clearly viewed her as an obstacle to productivity rather than an essential part of risk management. During one particularly revealing interaction, he observed her attempt to halt work in an area where scaffolding hadn't been properly secured, only to be overruled by foreman Agu, who claimed the delay would push the project behind schedule. "It's a minor scaffolding issue that we can address during the next scheduled maintenance window," Agu explained when Emeka approached to inquire about the situation. "No need to stop work over something that doesn't present immediate danger to anyone." But when Emeka asked Amaka for her professional assessment, her response revealed the depth of the problem. The scaffolding brackets show stress fractures that could lead to structural failure under load, she replied, showing him detailed photographs she had taken with her phone. Industry standard requires immediate remediation when these signs are observed, regardless of schedule considerations. Ifokeki examined the photos and found himself agreeing completely with Amaka's assessment. The stress patterns she had identified were indeed consistent with scaffolding that could fail catastrophically, if not addressed immediately, potentially causing serious injuries or fatalities. "Stop work in this area until the scaffolding is repaired or replaced," he ordered. "And I want a comprehensive inspection of all scaffolding on the site by certified engineers within 48 hours. Foreman Agu's face flushed with anger, but he couldn't argue with a direct order from the project owner. As workers began securing the area and removing equipment from the potentially dangerous scaffolding, Emeka pulled Amaka aside for a private conversation. "How often do you identify safety issues that get overruled by supervisory staff?" he asked. "More often than I'd like, sir. There's constant pressure to maintain schedule, and safety requirements are sometimes viewed as obstacles rather than necessities." "And how do you document these situations?" Amaka showed him her logbook, which contained detailed records of safety concerns, recommended actions, supervisory responses, and follow-up requirements. Her documentation was meticulous and professional, providing a clear paper trail of safety issues and management responses. "This is excellent record-keeping," Amaka observed. "Have you considered pursuing formal safety management certifications, or perhaps engineering credentials?" "I've been taking evening classes toward a degree in civil engineering, sir, but the schedule is challenging while working full-time, and the financial requirements are significant." "What's your long-term career goal?" "I'd like to become a licensed safety engineer or project manager, sir. I believe that construction projects can be both profitable and safe, but it requires leadership commitment to making safety a genuine priority, rather than just a compliance requirement." Emeka found himself impressed not only by her professional competence, but also by her clear vision for career development and her commitment to improving industry practices. This was exactly the kind of talent that his company should be investing in and developing for future leadership roles. Over the following week, Emeka made several unannounced visits to the construction site, ostensibly to monitor the scaffolding repairs and safety improvements that had been implemented following his direct orders. But he was also observing Emeka's daily performance and interactions with other workers, and what he saw consistently impressed him on multiple levels. She had a natural ability to explain complex safety requirements in ways that workers understood and accepted, rather than resented. Her knowledge of construction techniques and safety protocols was comprehensive and remarkably up-to-date, suggesting someone who actively pursued continuing education and professional development despite the demands of full-time work. Most importantly, she seemed genuinely committed to protecting people rather than just following rules or advancing her own career interests. During one of these visits, Emeka witnessed an incident that crystallized his growing respect for her professional judgment and personal character. A new worker had failed to properly secure his safety harness while working on an elevated platform, creating a serious fall risk that could have resulted in severe injury or death if the worker slipped or lost his balance. Instead of simply writing up a violation report or immediately escalating the issue to supervisors, Emeka approached the worker directly, explained the specific risks he was creating for himself and others, and helped him properly adjust his safety equipment, while providing additional hands-on training about proper harness use and fall protection protocols. Safety isn't about following rules for the sake of following rules, Emeka overheard her explaining to the worker in a patient but firm voice. It's about making sure everyone goes home safely to their families at the end of each workday. Your safety harness is literally the only thing standing between you and a 50-foot fall that would probably kill you. The worker accepted her guidance without defensiveness or resentment, clearly recognizing that her concern was genuine and her expertise was based on real knowledge rather than bureaucratic authority. Emeka noted that this kind of positive safety culture was exactly what distinguished excellent construction projects from merely adequate ones. But he also observed that Amaka's efforts to maintain high safety standards were creating increasing tension with foreman AGU and other supervisors, who seemed to view her thoroughness as a threat to their authority and possibly to their job security. Several times during his unannounced visits, Emeka saw AGU countermand her safety recommendations or attempt to minimize the significance of issues she had identified. The situation reached a critical point during Emeka's third week of increased site monitoring. Amaka had identified a serious electrical safety violation where temporary power lines had been installed without proper grounding, creating a significant electrocution risk for workers using power tools in the affected area. When she attempted to halt work until the electrical issues could be corrected by certified electricians, foreman AGU not only overruled her decision, but also announced that she was being transferred to a different project site, effective immediately, for what he termed failure to balance safety requirements with productivity needs and ongoing disruption of efficient work processes. Emeka arrived at the site just as this confrontation was reaching its peak, with Amaka calmly documenting the electrical hazards in her logbook while AGU loudly berated her for creating unnecessary delays and undermining site productivity with excessive safety concerns. What exactly is the safety issue here? Emeka asked, interrupting the argument and drawing the attention of several workers who had gathered to watch the confrontation. Amaka showed him the electrical installation, explaining the specific code violations and the risks they created for anyone using power tools or working with metal equipment in the area. Her analysis was technically sound and well documented, with clear recommendations for corrective action that would bring the installation into compliance with both safety standards and local electrical codes. And what's your assessment of the urgency of these corrections? Emeka asked, examining the installation himself. Immediate action required, sir. Workers are at serious risk of injury or death every minute this installation remains in its current condition. The grounding failures could cause electrocution, and the exposed wiring could cause fires or electrical burns. Emeka examined the electrical setup himself, and found Amaka's assessment to be entirely accurate and professionally sound. The installation was indeed dangerous and violated multiple safety codes that were specifically designed to prevent exactly the kind of accidents that could shut down the entire project and expose his company to enormous legal and financial liability. All work stops immediately until this electrical issue is corrected, he ordered. And I want a comprehensive electrical safety inspection of the entire site by certified professionals. Sir, that could delay the project by several days. Foreman AGU protested. We're already operating under tight deadlines. Better a few days delay than a worker fatality. Ifunanya Prut replied sharply. And I want to understand why this safety violation wasn't identified and corrected through normal supervisory channels. As the electrical work was shut down and contractors were called in to perform emergency corrections. Ifunanya Prut, 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 Ifunanya. Amaka's documentation revealed a consistent pattern of safety concerns being minimized or ignored in favor of maintaining construction schedules. Her transfer to another project was clearly retaliation for her refusal to compromise on safety standards, which suggested that the site's management culture was fundamentally problematic. That evening, Ifunaka called an emergency meeting with his senior construction executives, safety director, and legal counsel to discuss what he had observed and to implement immediate changes to project oversight and safety management protocols. The meeting lasted nearly 3 hours as they reviewed systemic safety issues, management accountability procedures, and the need for cultural transformation across all company projects. But he also found himself thinking extensively about Amaka's professional situation and wondering how he could support her career development while addressing the broader safety issues that her experience had revealed. The more he reflected on their interactions, the more he realized that his interest in her professional development was becoming complicated by a growing personal attraction that he wasn't sure how to handle appropriately. She was clearly talented, dedicated, and possessed exactly the kind of integrity and competence that he valued most in both business relationships and personal ones. But she was also his employee, and any romantic interest would create complex power dynamics that could be problematic for both of them, especially given the significant difference in their positions within the company hierarchy. At the same time, he found himself genuinely impressed by her intelligence, ethical standards, and commitment to doing the right thing even when it created professional difficulties for her. These were exactly the qualities he had always hoped to find in a life partner, and he was beginning to wonder whether there might be a way to explore both her professional potential and their personal compatibility without compromising either relationship. The next morning, Ifunanya Amaka arrived at the construction site with a comprehensive plan that he hoped would address both the immediate safety issues and Amaka's career development needs while giving him an opportunity to better understand her goals, interests, and personal values. He found her in the site office, completing her detailed documentation of the electrical safety violations and preparing for her involuntary transfer to the other project. She looked up as he entered, her expression professional but guarded, clearly uncertain about how the previous day's events might affect her employment status and future career prospects. I've been reviewing the safety documentation you've compiled over the past several months, Emeka began, gesturing to the comprehensive files she had maintained with meticulous attention to detail. Your record-keeping is exceptional, and your technical analysis of safety issues has been consistently accurate, well-reasoned, and professionally presented. Thank you, sir. I just try to do my job thoroughly and maintain proper documentation for all safety-related incidents and observations. What I'm seeing goes well beyond just doing your job thoroughly. You're demonstrating the kind of systematic thinking, technical competence, and leadership capability that we need to develop and promote within our organization at all levels. Amaka looks surprised but cautiously optimistic about where this conversation might be heading. I appreciate that feedback, sir. I've always believed that safety and quality are inseparable aspects of successful construction management. I'm going to be implementing some significant changes to our safety management structure across all projects, and I'd like you to be a central part of that transformation process. Would you be interested in a role that would give you more authority to implement and enforce safety protocols across all our construction projects? What kind of role are you thinking about, sir? Corporate Safety Director, with responsibility for developing and implementing safety standards, comprehensive training programs, and oversight procedures for all Adebayo Holdings construction projects. It would include a substantial salary increase, full educational support for completing your engineering degree, and the authority to halt work when safety violations are identified, regardless of schedule pressures or budget considerations. Amaka stared at him in obvious shock, clearly not having expected such a dramatic career opportunity to emerge from what had seemed like a disciplinary situation. "Sir, that's an incredible offer, but I'm not sure I have the formal credentials for such a senior position within your organization. You have the most important credential: demonstrated competence under pressure and genuine commitment to doing the right thing even when it's difficult or professionally costly. The formal credentials can be developed through education and training, which we'll fully support." What would this mean for my current position and my relationship with site management, like foreman AGU? You'd be reporting directly to me rather than to site supervisors, which would eliminate the conflicts of interest you've been experiencing. Your job would be to ensure that all our projects meet the highest safety standards, regardless of schedule pressures, cost considerations, or political dynamics. As they discussed the details of the proposed role, including salary, benefits, educational support, and reporting relationships, Ifunanyas Brekshiks Priki say, impressed by her thoughtful questions and her clear understanding of the challenges involved in implementing effective safety management across multiple construction sites with different supervisors and work cultures. But he was also becoming more aware of his growing personal attraction to her combination of professional competence and personal integrity. The way she approached complex problems with systematic analysis and genuine concern for people's well-being was exactly what he found most appealing in both business and personal relationships. "There's one more thing I'd like to discuss," he said carefully, choosing his words with deliberate precision. "This new role would involve significant travel between project sites and considerable interaction with senior management. I want to make sure you're comfortable with the level of professional relationship that would require." "I think I can handle professional relationships at any level, sir. I'm committed to doing excellent work regardless of the political dynamics or interpersonal complexities. I'm sure you can handle the professional aspects competently. I'm more concerned about the personal dynamics that might develop when people work closely together on challenging projects and begin to respect and appreciate each other's capabilities and character." Amaka looked at him with a slight smile that suggested she understood the subtext of his concern and was comfortable addressing it directly. "Are you asking whether I think professional relationships can remain professional even when people develop mutual respect and enjoy working together? Something like that?" "Yes. I think mutual respect is the foundation of any good working relationship, sir, and I think mature adults can maintain appropriate boundaries while still acknowledging that they enjoy working together and value each other's contributions to shared goals." It was a carefully diplomatic answer that nevertheless suggested she was aware of the attraction developing between them and was confident in her ability to handle it professionally while leaving open the possibility for future personal exploration. "In that case, I'd like to offer you the position officially, with a start date of next Monday. We'll begin with a comprehensive safety audit of all our current projects, followed by development of new training programs and oversight procedures. I accept, sir, and thank you for recognizing my work and giving me this extraordinary opportunity to make a real difference in construction safety." As they shook hands to formalize the agreement, Emeka realized that he was not only acquiring a valuable employee, but also potentially beginning a relationship that could develop into something much more significant than a business partnership. 6 months later, Emeka had not only transformed the safety culture across all Adebayo Holdings construction projects, but had also completed her bachelor's degree in civil engineering with comprehensive support from the company's educational assistance program. Accident rates had dropped by 70% across all project sites. Worker satisfaction surveys showed significant improvement in multiple categories, including safety, confidence, and job security, and the company had won several prestigious industry awards for safety excellence and innovative worker training programs. More importantly, from Emeka's perspective, their professional relationship had evolved into a personal friendship based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine enjoyment of each other's company. They had carefully maintained appropriate professional boundaries while working together, but it had become increasingly clear that their compatibility extended well beyond professional collaboration and into areas of personal values, life goals, and emotional connection. During a routine site inspection at the company's newest high-rise project, Emeka found himself walking beside Amaka as she explained the innovative safety features that had been incorporated into the design based on her recommendations and extensive industry research. Her expertise had grown dramatically over the past months,
and her confidence in her professional judgment was evident in every interaction with workers, supervisors, subcontractors, and safety inspectors. The construction site around them was a model of safety excellence, with clearly marked zones, properly maintained equipment, comprehensive training programs, and workers who seemed genuinely committed to following protocols rather than just going through the motions to satisfy supervisors. The transformation in safety culture was visible in every aspect of the operation, from the quality of personal protective equipment to the way workers communicated with each other about risk management and emergency procedures.
You know, he said, as they paused to observe workers implementing one of her new safety protocols with obvious competence and enthusiasm. When I first met you, I was impressed by your quick thinking and professional competence, but I had no idea how much you were going to change, not just our safety culture, but our entire approach to construction management, worker development, and corporate responsibility. I've had excellent support and opportunities to develop my skills and implement my ideas, Amaka replied, watching with obvious satisfaction as a team of workers demonstrated proper emergency response procedures during a scheduled drill. And I've enjoyed working with a leadership team that actually values safety and worker welfare over short-term profits and schedule pressures. Is that your diplomatic way of saying you've enjoyed working with me specifically? She smiled, the kind of genuine, unguarded smile that had become more frequent as their professional relationship had deepened into personal friendship and mutual respect. I've enjoyed working with you specifically, yes. But I've also been careful not to let personal feelings interfere with professional responsibilities and decision-making processes. What if I told you that I've been taking the same careful approach to managing personal feelings while maintaining professional standards and appropriate boundaries? I'd say that suggests we're both mature adults who can handle complex situations appropriately and honestly without compromising our professional integrity. And what if I told you that I'd like to explore whether our personal compatibility might be as strong as our professional partnership has proven to be over these past months? Amaka considered this carefully before responding, her expression thoughtful but not surprised by the direction of the conversation. I'd say that would require some thoughtful discussion about how to maintain the professional relationship we've built while exploring personal possibilities and potential complications that might arise. Would you be interested in having that conversation over dinner sometime, away from the construction site and office environment where we can speak freely? I think I'd like that very much, Emeka. As they continued their site inspection, observing the successful implementation of safety protocols that had become the industry standard for excellence throughout the region, Emeka reflected on how much his life had changed since that morning, when Amaka had prevented his accident through quick thinking and professional competence. She had not only helped him avoid physical injury, but had also introduced him to someone whose combination of intelligence, integrity, and genuine care for others had enriched both his business operations and his personal life in ways he hadn't anticipated when he first stepped onto that construction site 6 months earlier. The construction project around them was proceeding ahead of schedule and under budget, with safety standards that exceeded industry requirements and worker satisfaction levels that had become a model for other companies throughout the region. But more importantly, he had found someone whose values aligned perfectly with his own, and whose company he genuinely enjoyed both professionally and personally. You know what I've learned from working with you over these past months? He said, as they concluded their inspection and prepared to return to the corporate offices for their afternoon meetings. What's that? That the best relationships, whether professional or personal, are built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared commitment to doing the right thing, even when it's difficult or costly. I've learned that too, Amaka replied. And I've learned that when people share those values, they can accomplish remarkable things together. That love follows respect, not the other way around.